welcome to the Above It All podcast. My name is King. Today I brought my special friend Moose. I've known him for several years. He's a musical sound engineer. Worked with a lot of people in Toronto, like Rich Kid, Jessie, Rayaz, Drake. And he helps, boost a lot of people's careers. He's a dope guy. I've known him for about 23 years and counting. And I would like to welcome Moose to my first episode.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. And congratulations on the podcast.
Yeah.
That's big. That's big.
It definitely is. So what I would like to ask, well, first I would like to start off with a motivational quote. That's how I want to start every episode.
Nice.
So today's motivational quote would be, if you think it's expensive to go forward, imagine how much it costs to go backwards. And that's how we'll start it off.
Nice. I like that.
So what made you get into music?
Well, I knew that I wasn't going to have a regular job from a very young age because my life wasn't like most other kids around me's lives. My mom passed away when I was younger. My dad was in and out of jail. I just didn't relate to a lot of my friends. And so I knew that I wasn't going to have a 9 to 5. I wasn't going to be in an office. So I kind of started thinking about, what are just things that I like to do. And I knew I wanted to do something that I loved doing and that was a little bit different from the ordinary job. And in my teenage years, I started beatboxing and freestyling with my friends a lot. And I was always looking for beats to freestyle to.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. And this boy can rap.
So we just kind of gravitated towards music, and music was my escape. It was a way to, escape my life. Living with either my aunt and uncle or my grandparents. Not that I felt I had to escape that life, but it's just a way for me to be on my own and kind of with my thoughts and process everything that was going on in my life at such a young age.
So, like, what would you say, or who would you say, like, your biggest inspiration to do music was? Like, when you were listening to music and it just, like, clicked, like, okay, this is who I want to,
Oh, man, there's so many influences. Probably at the time where I started getting into music, it was rap. It was listening to nothing but hip hop. Rappers like Big L, Big Pun, obviously Pac and Big were big influences. Eminem, obviously.
Yep.
I am a white guy, let's be real. Eminem was definitely a huge influence.
Dirty Dozen.
He kind of made it okay for white guys to rap. Eminem's doing it. Okay, it's cool, man. It's cool, man. But yeah, those are some that come to mind.
And, like, did you ever think that, because when you're in it, you're almost having tunnel vision, and everybody's like, "Oh, what? Like, this is not going to pay your bills. This is not going to do this." Like, what made you say, "You know what? I don't care. I'm just going to keep going forward."
Yeah, that's the love and the passion. You have to love any creative field. There's a long time of a learning curve and be like getting to a point where people are reaching out to you with budgets that can actually pay you. Like, it's years, and it's years before you even get good, and then it's years of being good before you actually get paid. So, luckily in Toronto we have community programs with studios, and there's opportunities there. I got a job at a studio when I was like 18, getting paid full time to be an engineer there, recording at-risk youth in the community, and then people from the shelter upstairs would come down, and it was such a wide variety of people coming in and out of there, and opportunities like that it gives you some hope. Like, okay, maybe I can make a living out of this. This is actually not bad, and that's actually how I drifted from being a producer to being an engineer. It was like everybody needs someone to record them. Everybody brings their own producer, Every rapper is like, all right, or they bring beats. It didn't even matter. It's like, here's beat from the Roots. Here's a beat from Erykah Badu, and I'm just gonna rap for 96 bars over this thing. Okay.
It's very much important, and I also think, like, here in the Scarborough hub that we could even get that set up, because I know you have a strong passion in a good ear. You know, you went to Metalworks, and for people that don't know, could you tell them what Metalworks actually is?
Yeah, Metalworks. Well, it started out as a studio. The drummer from this band called, oh my God, the name of the band is escaping me right now. Drummer from this band in the 70s, Canadian rock band. His name is Gil Moore.
Okay.
He started this school, Triumph. Drummer from Triumph opened this school. Okay. Or sorry, he opened this studio. I think late 70s, early 80s. And eventually he turned it into a school. Actually, just a few years before I went there. And it's one of Canada's top recording studios. So, you know, it had a prestige to it. And when they opened up the school aspect, people were dying to get in because you got to work in these studios, right? And learn on these consoles and in these beautiful rooms. Yeah.
So you're in Metalworks, right?
Yep.
What's one thing you took away from that program?
The biggest takeaway for me was that you have to create your own opportunities, because there are some kids who went in, graduated, but didn't really get much out of it. If that makes sense, like there's other kids who went in, and like one of the guys ended up working with Gavin Brown right out of school. Like
Jeez.
he was in and out of there, and boom, he's like in the pro leagues, you know, in the big leagues. So it's really what you make of it. You have to make your own connections. You can go in and just kind of do the bare minimum, or you can go in, really put yourself in there and come away with all the opportunities that really are in there. And you kind of have to make those opportunities, because they're not really presented to you. You have to, you know, put your foot in the door and get in there.
And see, I think that's like the most important part, like getting your foot in and then actually keeping it in there.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people think, okay, I finally got in. I got in. It's over.
Exactly,
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
you know,
Getting in is half the battle.
Yeah, like, you know, I'm at the finish line now because I got in. But that's not the case. In your case,
and then they slow down.
Yeah. So in your case, it's like you fought so hard to get in. Now you have to fight even harder to keep yourself in and to make your connections, build your connections, build rapport with people.
Yeah.
You know, be punctual, be professional.
Yeah.
And no, like that's amazing, because I think for the young youths that are coming up saying that they want to be a producer and this and sound engineer, there's a lot that goes into it. It's not just a walk in the park, and you're not going to just be making money right off the bat.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah, exactly. There's a saying in I don't know, it's just like the professional workforce, that's dress for the job you want, not the job you have. And I think metaphorically that kind of relates to any field, even in school. It's like, go into class with the mentality that, hey, I'm going to be a teacher here one day. You know, I'm going to be a professor. I'm going to come out of here, and the staff is going to be asking me to come back and give a lecture. That's kind of the mentality I've taken into everything. Like, you know, I'm coming in here as a recording engineer to this session, but I'm going to leave with these guys asking me for beats, because they're like, damn, this guy really knows his.
But no, like you're absolutely right. And, you know, going forward, you know, the artists that you worked with, right? What's one moment you could share that was like super, like it still resonates with you today, or you still laugh about it when you're just thinking of
God. The one that came to mind, I was reading your questions. The one moment that sticks out for some reason, and because it was hilarious and shocking all at the same time, I was in Chicago with Jessie, Rayaz, and King Louie. Okay, This was the first time we were in Chicago. And we get to the studio on time. And of course, Louie's not there yet. So Louis shows up. Louis shows up with like 20 guys. All right.
Oh, wow.
And, you know, I've worked in community center studios for years. That's not new to me, especially in the rap game. You know, a rapper comes through to a session and has his whole entourage with him. So whatever, we're in the studio, we're working. And at this point, I was on the computer, and all the guys are sitting around. The couches are on the wall. And the room's not very big, mind you. So there's like 2 couches on the side, and there's people standing in the back of the room. And I just assume everybody's part of King Louie's entourage, right? But what I didn't know was there was a guy in the back who had just come to play beats for King Louis. And he's standing in the back, and one guy at one point offered him a seat, but it was one of those, like, I don't know if you watch Key and Peele, there's an episode of the guy who won't sit down. He's like, no, I'm good, and then he, like, fucking passes out.
He's like, yo, he's not good.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm on the computer, and all of a sudden we just hear, boom, boom. And everybody turns around, and he had fallen and spilled a bottle of something over the table. So everyone got up, and it just caused this huge chaos in the studio. And we're like, what's going on? And I just turn, and I see this guy with just a pile of dreads. That's all I see. And his face is flat down on the floor. And I'm like, oh, my God. And then people were, like, poking him and pushing him, like, yo, you good, you good? And he kind of just, like, twitched and looked up, and as soon as he looked up, everybody started bursting out laughing, like,
"Oh, yeah, he's okay. He's okay, guys.
He's good." Yeah, as soon as we realized he wasn't dead, it was just hilarious, and everybody started bursting out laughing because there's blunts going around. It's like, yo, you want to sit down because and it was like one of those sessions where it's just a constant rotation of smoke.
Man, shout outs to King Louis and Jessie Rayaz. Really, really dope people.
Yeah, great people.
Man, see, this is why you should take people's advice to sit down. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's like the guy could have sat down, but he was trying to play it cool, I guess. And then I realized after, he's not part of this.
He's not part of the entourage.
He just came to play Louis some beats. Poor guy.
Okay, well, I want to talk to you about one of the records that you helped engineer that I was super fascinated with.
Yeah.
September 5th, Division.
Yeah.
Like, take me through that process, because, like, when I hear that, I was just like, yo, this is wild.
Yeah, well, shout out to Division, Daniel and 85. They're pros. And that was at a time when I was in the Remix Project. Shout out to the Remix Project.
What round?
Round 11. 11.0.
Shout out to Remix.
Yeah, so I was in the program, and obviously, I kind of stood out in terms of a work ethic. Like that's another example of me coming in, going for a job. I was coming in looking for a job. I wasn't coming in just as a youth in the round. So it wasn't long before Daniel started asking me to like engineer some sessions after hours. Mm-hmm. And now he was starting this thing with producer 1985 called Division. And they had some songs that they were working on. So, I would do my regular recordings during the day, and then I'd stay after the youth program ended to work on songs with Daniel and 85. And that was a huge opportunity for me, and I was so stoked to be a part of that. But, yeah, it was basically us just staying at the Remix. That whole album was recorded at the Remix, except for, like, some minor vocals that Daniel and 85 did. I think they went up to somebody's cottage and cut some vocals up there. But most of that album was recorded at the Remix. The old Remix, which was in Liberty Village. And it was just us staying after hours and working on it, and sometimes coming in on weekends and stuff. Like, they had the keys.
I got the keys.
It was free for all. But yeah, that was a great learning experience. I learned so much working with those guys.
Well, my favorite song on that album was Hallucinations. Like, I don't know where you guys pulled that out from, but that was like...
Well, I'm not taking any credit for the music, but, just in terms of the recordings, it was record until we got the best take and then comp the best take together. Comping vocals is, that's just kind of standard these days.
So... Because I know being a sound engineer, it's pretty frustrating at times because sometimes the artists are not prepared. Like, what type of artist would be ideal to work with? Like, because you know how some people come in and I guess they have to smoke a blunt first or they have to do this. First.
I mean, I'm not even mad at that because, you're paying for the studio time. The artists that are ideal to work with are artists that are in a place where, they can bring you some spotlight. Like, let's say Jessie Rayaz, for example. It's great working with her because she comes in, she's ready to go. She's driven to work. So there's that. And then there's opportunities that come with it, like winning awards and stuff and getting recognition beyond just your paycheck. It's yeah. And your name gets on, who knows? Like, she'll do a track, cut it with me. And then the next thing you know, Daniel Caesar is on the track and it's like, oh, sick. Now I have that credit.
Dope. Well,
So those are the ideal artists to work with who bring more opportunity to you.
well, I noticed you recently won a Juno. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, the 2023 Contemporary R&B Recording of the Year for Jessie Rayaz's album Jessie, which I produced the first song on.
How did that feel?
That felt really good. Jessie actually surprised me with that one. It was a song that we had done a couple years before, and one day I just get a phone call saying, "Hey, could you listen to this song that you did with Jessie? She worked on it with another producer named Rayaz, and she's going to put it on her album." And I was like, "Oh, what? That's sick. Yeah,
Winning.
winning." Yeah, and I got to shout out my boy Anthony Daniel, because he played the keys on that song, and it was one of those ones where like he sent me a beat, I stripped everything off the beat,
Typical move.
just used the keys and made my own beat, and then me and Jessie built a song from it, and then she took that song and worked on it with Rayaz, and they did this whole chorus thing where they sampled an old Colombian song from the 90s,
Dope.
and it turned out great. Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. For people that don't know, like, work ethic is everything. Like,
And you never know, what could happen with your ideas. Like, finish your ideas.
yeah, like, do not prolong, great ideas, because if God gave you the vision, He'll also give you the clients. So, always go for what you want out of this life. I often feel like, you always have a lot of people are not living in the present.
Yeah.
We're either living in tomorrow or in the past. And in the past is the
Or
mistake.
on the internet.
Or on the internet,
Just living in our phones.
No, exactly.
Scary, man.
And to me, that's like the biggest separation with, human contact, because the person you need to get in contact with is probably sitting right beside you, but you're too busy scrolling on your phone to notice them.
Yeah.
So, like, now that we're talking about social media, like, how do you feel social media has played a role in the music? Do you think that it's made it worse because it's more accessible, or it made it better because now you don't really have to sign the 360 music deals and you could just, blow up off of TikTok? Or,
Yeah, it's a bit of both. I mean, on the one hand, everybody has an opportunity now, right? So the playing ground is more level. But on the other hand, it's so saturated now. It's gotten harder to stand out. Back in the day, if you made a record, just the simple fact that you've made a record, you had a decent chance of people listening to that record. But now there's like a million new artists a day. Like, how do you get heard? You can't just put something out and expect anything to happen anymore. You're literally playing the lottery. It's crazy. But on the other hand, yeah, you could just sit in your bedroom and bang out an album, and that's great. It depends. I think it depends on like what you want from music. From music in general, I think it's worse because there's so much, I hate to say it, so much mediocre music being made and released now. I think the average listener is pretty tired of hearing that.
No, 100%. Yeah, I feel like that too, because I feel like they don't really bring that art of storytelling, that craft of,
Yeah, and what it does is it lowers the bar for everybody, right? So you only have to be this good now to stand out.
Because before you would have to bring the metaphors, the similes, the puns. And
the beats, like the productions were crazy. Like,
yeah. Like,
productions are getting more and more lazy. Like, it just feels like everyone's using loops and the same samples and like drum samples, and everything kind of sounds the same, but you don't know why. It's like, why do I feel like I've heard this 1,000 times?
Oh, 100%. And see, that's why, for me, one of my favorite records from Eminem was Stan, because it was super creative. From
Yeah.
start to finish,
Yeah.
it was like the song took you on a journey of its own.
Yeah.
Without seeing the video, you already knew what the video was going to be.
Exactly. Yeah.
And then when you see the video, you're like, oh my God, this is what I imagined.
Exactly.
So that's the one thing that I can honestly say, I'm not happy about with the social media push onto music, because it's like, you're right, it's just saturated fat,
Right.
to the ears. And for a person that, used to zone out and let music take you through this like lyrical journey of, just being somewhere else in a time and a space.
Yeah.
Like, I often feel like, there has to be some type of, policy of, this guy's trash. You know what I
Right,
mean?
yeah.
Like he
Where's
ain't,
the
he ain't
trash
coming
bin?
Yeah, like, and it's crazy because I feel like the genre used to be so healthy. It used to actually teach people, a part of life that you wouldn't really get from your parents. So,
The genre of rap or like hip hop?
rap and hip hop,
Yeah.
like you would get answers to questions that were floating in your head.
Yeah.
So, like that's why I think it's very important for people that want to get into the genre to understand, like, this is not only about you, it's about the people that are going to be listening to your music. Like, you can't just pretend.
Yeah, it gave people a voice.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It was a way to express your struggles that, wasn't available otherwise. But on the other hand, now that you have social media, people can express their struggles and their feelings in other ways. So, there's that. I guess that could be seen as a good thing.
Yeah, no, it
Gives you an outlet,
Yeah, and for me, like when I first heard Tupac Changes,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? The outlet was so real. It's like, damn it, this is what I've been thinking my whole life. Like,
yeah.
He said things that are still relevant today. War in the Middle East. Like, who would have known back then there was a war in the Middle East?
Exactly.
District strangers. You still have, rival neighborhoods fighting each other, shooting each other. For what reason? And it's so crazy because I feel like the city just monopolizes off of the death that happens in these, underprivileged neighborhoods that, lack resources for children.
Yeah.
And, me being somebody that, came from the street life, it was like, if I had these opportunities, would I have went down these roads? Hell no.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like what if I had a community center where I could, do music or just play basketball or work out? Like, because it's hard, coming from a single parent household, putting all that stress on your mom or trying to, get the most relevant clothing. It's hard. And I think for the young youth growing up, I don't think they have that, role model. I think there's a lot of people that are models playing a role, but they're not actually role models, especially in music, because some of the things I hear, I'm just like, what the hell? Like, you guys are signing these kids up to go to jail.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
what's the message?
Yeah, what's the message? Spin the block and shoot somebody that came from the same type of upbringing as you. Single parent household, parent living check to check, or, not as much attention's been given to the child for that child to grow as an individual.
Yeah.
I feel like the arts is just a creative mechanism for people to, like, express themselves. And I think that's the most important part. A lot of children been neglected, so they want to be heard. And, hip hop has always given them that voice,
Yeah. I mean, it's not even just hip hop. It's just the ability to express yourself, right? It doesn't have to be through hip hop, although hip hop is a very literal and direct way of doing that. But like, R&B music, even jazz was like just freedom of expression, just a way to release that tension that, it's been building in you all day and all week. Like it's just getting it out and having some kind of, vessel to get it out of you. Like, so you don't feel like, you want to go attack somebody.
Yeah, exactly.
Or rob somebody or something. Like, yeah, it's definitely key. It's a great way to, decompress.
So my thing is this. What would you, if you were to start your own program of basically sound engineering, music producing,
Hmm.
what would that look like? And like, what would you say the amount of grant money would be needed to start that program?
Oh, it's going to be in the billions for sure.
Ballin'.
No, I don't know. I'm starting my own program for production. Sorry, what would you say?
Yeah, like music production, sound engineering, because
Yeah. Like a school?
well, maybe a after school program. Well, you could start it there for
Right.
from 4 to 6. Kids could drop in.
Yeah. Yeah.
Learn how to make beats. They get community
Yeah, I mean,
service
it would probably
hours.
start with just having a bunch of computers, a bunch of little production workstations, and just letting kids go at it and being there if they had questions, but like just giving them the time and space to work at it. But yeah, it's so different now because there's apps for your phone that you could like make beats on now, so kids who are into it, it's more accessible than ever to get into, and that's a great thing. But like we talked about earlier, it also saturates the market, and there's more stuff to dig through to find something that you like, and I find it's getting harder to find stuff that I like. Like when I see a new Music Friday drop now, there's like 1 or 2 songs that I like, and that's kind of sad, So look at all this
100%.
new music. Oh my God. And it's even artists, even from artists that, I like some of their stuff. It's just not, and maybe I'm part of the problem. I'm not a spring chicken anymore.
Yeah, we're considered older heads now.
Yeah,
You know what I
we're
mean?
OGs,
Yeah,
man.
like
Yeah, like a remedy for the oversaturated music industry right now. Probably if let's say streaming platforms had a tiered system, so that if you don't meet a certain criteria, I mean, it kind of is like this. They don't put you in a playlist unless you basically have to be signed to a label
yeah, exactly.
or be someone like Chance the Rapper. But yeah, if you don't if you don't meet a certain criteria, then you're not getting in these playlists. If you don't have this many, how do you measure it though? It's like the only measurement that we have is plays.
Yeah,
And that's not
exactly.
really good enough because that's just a popularity contest. But where's the talent, the measure of talent? And it's so subjective that how would you even measure that if you could? Like, I don't know. I don't know if there is a cure. It's just the times we're living in, and I don't think it's gonna get better. It's, if anything, gonna get worse.
I strongly agree because some of the things I hear these kids listening to when I'm on the block, and I'm like, what the hell is this?
Yeah.
They're like, yo, you don't feel that? I'm like, feel what? What is this? What is this gibberish?
So when I hear stuff like that, I always, I have the same reaction as you, but then I'll try my best to like, okay, let's listen. What is attracting these kids? Because there's something there that they like, right? Is it just the energy? Is it a bop? Is it like, I don't know. Is it just something that's, something that's very annoying and just repetitive and just drilling it into your head like an earworm? Like, there's
Honestly.
usually something, and then I can usually find something like, okay, I see what the, what the kids like, but
Yeah, I can't
It's not
find
for me.
anything. I can't find anything of that sort. Like when I hear these saturated bars, I'm just like, what the hell is going on?
right.
And the thing is, like,
But then maybe it's the flow or the delivery that you can kind of see. Okay, that's cool. The way he said that was cool. Or
no, of course. And, you're right. The delivery, the flow, because there's some artists that came out that I was just like, oh, man, like, yeah, the delivery is pretty crazy, And I remember listening to, like, Juice WRLD's freestyles. And I was like, this guy could really flow on any beat.
Right,
like, I didn't listen to his raps, but his freestyles, oh, my goodness.
right.
And even like XXX Extension, like I really, like I was just like, man, this guy's just a different energy. He looked
Yeah,
like
he's
Majin
dope.
Buu to me, bro.
He's
like,
dope.
And it's
No,
but like, But he just had that like raw energy to him, and I could see why like people gravitated towards these type of acts, you know. But
Yeah, I mean, he definitely was just taking voice notes and making tracks out of them. You can hear it sounds like an iPhone recording in a lot of his songs, and people really love that. Like, yeah, this shit just sounds raw.
yeah. So like, you worked with Post Malone.
Yep,
How was that experience?
that was a crazy night. The story was he was in Toronto doing a show, and he was coming to the studio. I'm trying to think of what
What?
order things happened in, because he was coming to my studio, but he also had to go to a club. He had an appearance he had to make at a club with his producer first, and I was at my studio waiting. I'm like set up, ready to go. Okay? All right, Allan, Rayman, and Post Malone are coming to my studio tonight. Everything's ready, and I'm sitting there and I'm waiting, and it was like 1 a.m. and I'm like, okay, these guys aren't coming. Like, it's not happening. And so I'm messaging Allan, like, what's good? Where are you guys at? What's going on? Allan was with him for whatever reason. I don't know. Maybe he went to the show. Maybe it wasn't even a show, to be honest, but he was in town. It was Post's personal assistant, Alex Strassmore, shout out to Alec, who was pushing this session to happen. He was a huge Allan. He is a huge Allan Rayman fan, and he really wanted to connect those two guys. So we knew we had someone on the inside kind of pushing for the session to happen. And so, as the night goes on, 1 a.m., I'm like, okay, guys, I'm exhausted. My bedtime is like 11:30. I'm just going to take a nap here on my couch. So I pass out. And then at like 2:30 or 3 a.m., I get a message from Allan being like, yo, we're coming. We're on the way. And I'm like, no way. So I like, all right. So I'm getting up. I'm exhausted. And you know how rappers roll. The whole entourage comes through. Now, my studio, okay, is like 12 feet by 10 feet. And you could maybe fit 4 people comfortably. There must have been 10, 12 people in there that he rolls in with. Actually, no, my bad. First, his producer first came through. And we started making beats. And his producer first brought 2 girls to the studio.
It's not a bad thing.
Who don't speak English.
Oh, my God.
And they come in and they just sit and they're like dressed to the nines. And I'm there in my hoodie and sweatpants. And it was, the energy didn't match. So I'm there like, what's going on with these girls? Why did you just bring these 2 girls who don't speak? Where did you find these girls? First of all, I think they spoke French and no English. But it just made me nervous, I'm like, what? There's 2 girls dressed up in high heels and like all this stuff, and I'm definitely not matching the energy. And then there's this producer, Post Malone's producer, who I've never met before, sits down beside me. He's like, all right, I've never met you, you've never met me. Let's just work, go. And I'm like, okay. Okay,
Well,
so
let me get Reason started.
I pull up a sound on my keyboard and like it was not good. I don't remember what happened, but it was not good. Obviously did not impress first. And he's just like, all right, let me play you some stuff. And then he starts playing me some of his recent stuff he's been working on, and it's like 2 Chainz and I don't remember who else. But I'm like, okay, that sounded dope. I'm sorry,
Sorry, I didn't meet your expectations.
I wasn't able to make a banger on the spot here. Also, I think we had smoked a blunt together, and I was like very baked at this stage. So it was like, I was in one of those baked moments where you just can't, pull yourself out of it. It was like in a weed coma. So this wasn't 3 a.m. yet. This wasn't 3 a.m. yet. This maybe was before like midnight or something. And he's like, we're going to the club because Post has to make an appearance at a club. And I was talking about how I don't like clubs, and he's like, well, you'd go if you got paid to go. And I said, oh, sure.
Yeah,
if I was getting paid to go, I'd go. Yeah.
5 G's? Where do I sign?
Usually it's the other way around. You're spending a lot of money at the
to get
clubs,
in.
and that's one of the reasons I don't like going. But But yeah, if I was getting paid, hell yeah, I'd be at a club.
Oh, for sure.
So he leaves. And then I'm thinking, he told Post, yo, this guy's whack. Don't go to this studio or whatever.
Yeah.
Don't waste your time.
This is not the white guy to go with.
Yeah, you know? And I'm like, I ruined it, man. It's all over. So anyways, fast forward now. I'm passed out on my couch. I get this message from Allan being like, yo, we're on the way. Jessie's coming too.
Jesse Reyes.
So Jessie Rayaz came through too. And so somewhere in the depths of my hard drive, I have a song with Allan Rayman, Post Malone, and Jessie Rayaz. It's
crazy.
a rough idea of a song. It never got finished, but yeah, it was pretty cool. So they came in, you know, more groupies. Post had a girlfriend at this time. So his girlfriend, and like I said, my studio is tiny. There's 3 people max on the couch. Post lets his girl sit on the couch, and he sits on the floor. And I was like, just thinking to myself, well, Post Malone is sitting on my studio floor right now. What a gentleman. And then these 2 twins sat on the couch, who were, one of them, it was like good cop, bad cop. Like one of them was super nice and polite, and the other was just cold. Like,
Oh, man.
was not happy to be there.
It's like,
You know,
I should be somewhere
cold
else
energy.
right now.
Yeah, and then he had a security guard who didn't fit in the studio, so he sat outside the studio in the hallway.
Oh, my goodness.
And then Alec, his assistant, who kind of coordinated the whole thing, he came through. Allan, Jessie, there's like, you know, there's a lot of people. Maybe a couple other people that I just don't even remember. And then it was like, okay, Moose, play some beats. And I was like, okay, I can play beats that have already made. Yes.
Yeah, this
is a lot easier. So I started going through some stuff, and then Post just got up and went in the booth and started just freestyling some stuff. And right away you can tell this guy's a pro. Like he can sing. He can sing. His vocals sounded great. And then I don't remember Allan or Jessie went in after him. They both laid something down. And then it was like, I don't know, 5, 6 a.m. by that point, you know?
Oh, my God.
And we're like, all right, like, let's wrap it up. But, you know, when someone like that comes through, you don't say you're too tired. You get your ass up and
you grind.
you answer the phone and you take the session. So, yeah. And then, you know, I've seen Post many times since then, and it's always been love. So shout out to him and shout out to Alec for making that happen.
Wow, that is crazy.
Yeah.
And yeah, you mentioned Allan Rayman, you know, really dope artist, super talented, has his own creative lane that is just crazy.
Oh yeah,
Like,
it's more like a creative world. Like
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if he creates his own amusement park or like world in Universal Studios one day. It's like Allan Rayman World.
Yeah, because like I remember like what drew me to him was a LA, New York, Chicago track.
Yeah, well that's like pre Allan Rayman.
Yeah, pre Allan Rayman, and I was like, wow, like, because I was working construction at the time, still am, and
Right.
I was like,
right,
yo,
right.
I feel these bars.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
So for those who don't know, that song was on a mixtape before anything that's currently released by Allan. It was before Hotel Allan, so it was like, oh man, either on I think it was on his album called Injured Cold. It was like a mixtape of like 6 or 7 songs.
Yeah, it was 6 songs, and when I heard that, I was just like, yo, I don't need to hear anything else. This guy's gonna blow.
Nice.
And then I heard Tennessee.
Yeah.
And I was like, yo, this is the type of beat you're making, bro? Like, what?
You know what's so funny? That beat, I made that beat in like 10 minutes with my laptop on my lap in a chair in his laundry room. And it was just one of those ones where I'm like, you know, programming with my trackpad. And I didn't, you know, it's just like whatever. Like it just felt good.
That beat.
It's his most listened to, at least on Spotify, his most listened to song.
Oh, dude. When I heard it, I was just like, whoa. I remember calling you up like, yo, can I get a beat like this?
Right?
Yeah,
Yeah, and I'm like, I don't know if I could do that right now, man.
like, you know, like, where did this come from, man? I was like, yo, so how do I get a production like this?
Tennessee, it's like, you know, with the strings and just tying, you know, having a common element through all of his songs to kind of create almost like a brand. It was us trying to do something different, but not too different. Like you always need a bridge if you're going to do something different. And I think that's where a lot of people get lost, is they don't have any bridge that connects the now to the new and different. There's something that tech companies will do called integral or interval deployment, where they will release stages of something new, like in intervals, rather than just create something in a lab and drop a monster on the world, because people aren't ready for that. So take OpenAI, for example. They had ChatGPT 1, 2, 3, and now 4. If they just drop a robot that can breathe and think for itself, like, people aren't ready for that, you know?
Yeah,
like
true.
this is them doing it in stages. And the same thing goes for music. You can't just create some new crazy sound that nobody's heard of, or like heard anything like, because people aren't ready for that. You have to slowly work your way there. So with a song like, not even just Tennessee as a song, but Allan Rayman as an artist, I always tried to be conscious of having a bridge, like something that connects the now to the new and different. And usually was the drums.
That's crazy.
You know? And that's kind of why I think it worked the way it did.
That's amazing. That is amazing, because to this day, you know, I listen to that track and I'm like, this is fire. You know what I mean? Like, there's some good music, you know. And so take me through the process of creating a beat. Like, do you just wake up and you're like, you know what, I have this melody in my head, let me just, you know, play with the strings? Like, what's your...
Sometimes I'll just think of melodies randomly, and I'll do like a voice note on my phone. But usually I'm sitting down and it's a sound that I hear that will inspire me. Either like a drum sound or like a cool instrument that'll just sound sick, and I'm like, oh, yes. And then when something inspires you, it just starts coming. And when it doesn't just start coming, it's very hard, and it usually doesn't work out. It's usually very tricky to push through something that's not coming naturally, you know? Like when, like, I don't know, like greater beings start talking to you.
It's like...
the energy, the creative energy starts coming through. You know, you're a vessel. You're just a vessel for the creativity to pass through. It's not actually you who are the creative. Well, you know, you just have to accept and
give
disperse.
it to the world. Yeah, no. And what programs do you use to create this?
Now I'm using mostly Ableton to create. I used to use Reason. I was a Reason head for the longest time, and people didn't understand how I could be using Reason, you know, like deep into the game up until a few years ago. And then I started using Ableton for live shows, and that's when I kind of got a grasp on it, and I realized, hey, this is actually pretty good. It's very light on the computer. It's quick. It sounds really good. Like, you can stretch audio like crazy, and that was a big part of me switching to Ableton. Oh, this time stretching, pitch stretching, and time stretching you can do with that. Oh, it was the best at the time. Now I think a lot of DAWs are using the same algorithms, but Ableton's just kind of become a standard.
So, like, for people that are, you know, watching this and they're going to get into the game of making music or sound engineering, like, what would you say the difference between, you know, GarageBand, Fruity Loops, Reason, Ableton? Like,
well, GarageBand is free, so if you're going to get into it, yeah, maybe start with GarageBand. I mean, I know they've changed this now, but it used to be you couldn't even export anything from GarageBand. It was just stuck in GarageBand.
It's like, we own you.
Yeah, or you couldn't. It was like you couldn't export waves or something. I forget what or you couldn't export stems. I forget what the limitations were, but they were like very limiting. Now I'm pretty sure they've changed that, but even still, you know, Logic. I'd say Logic Pro is the most user friendly out of all the DAWs. After Logic, you know, I'd recommend, depends, you know, if you just want to make slappers, like you just want your drums to knock, you don't even care what the melody is, then I'd say get into FL.
Yeah,
FL has that knock. There's not another DAW that can compete with the knock of FL Studio. And then Ableton is like the sound designer's dream house. It's like you can do anything to the audio and it's going to sound cool. It's probably the most versatile in terms of sound design. Pro Tools, don't get into Pro Tools unless you want to be a professional engineer. It's not a production software. Even though they've made a lot of improvements over the past few years, it's still so far behind all the other applications. Don't make beats in Pro Tools. I did that for years too. There's Reason in Pro Tools. I used to rewire, which means run Reason through Pro Tools. And it basically like just shows up as an audio track in Pro Tools. And it was such a difficult setup. Like, it's so taxing on my computer too. Like I'm behind. I haven't even loaded anything up, and you know the fan's going. Oh man, we're finally getting to a place where the fans aren't going with these new Apple M1 and M2 and M3 chips, where the fans don't need to be blowing so hard all the time. But yeah, it's been a long time coming.
And for people who don't know, like Moose has been like doing this for a long period of time and invested a lot of blood, sweat, tears, and money. Absolutely. And even mixing with the masters.
Yeah, Mix with the Masters. Great program.
Yeah, could you speak on how you got that?
Yeah, so I learned about Mix with the Masters, I think while I was in the Remix project in 2014, and I went in 2015. So this is right around the time I got my new studio. A lot of things happened for me in 2015. I got a new studio. I graduated the Remix project, got a new studio.
You also won the award.
I won the ADI Award.
ADI Award.
Project. Yeah, so I got my graduation certificate and I won the ADI Award. That was amazing. Allan Rayman was starting to buzz. I got, and then I found out about Mix with the Masters, which is a program where you can go. I mean, now they do them in more than one studio, but it used to just be in this studio in the south of France called Studios La Fabrique. And beautiful studio. It's like an old mansion, and there's a sick top of the line studio in the mansion, partially in the library and in like a foyer kind of thing. So I found out Eddie Kramer was going to be one of the hosts or lecturers, I guess.
For people that don't know, could you tell them who Eddie Kramer is?
Eddie Kramer is an OG engineer. He recorded bands like Led Zeppelin, Kiss. He even did some work with the Beatles. He's
the guy.
If you're an engineer, he's like, you know, he's the man. Jimi Hendrix. Can't forget about Jimi Hendrix.
Yeah.
He did most of Jimmy's stuff. And he also has some amazing photography that, you know, he took some pictures while he was recording in these sessions that like pictures nobody's ever seen that are awesome. Anyway, so I found out Eddie Kramer was going to be at Mix with the Masters. And so I was like, oh my God, I have to go to this Mix with the Masters. But to get to France, we have to fly to France, which is expensive. Then the program is expensive because they put you up for a week, and you know it's accommodation, food, and like this program, like the schooling. So I think all in all, it costs like $5,000.
$5,000 Canadian?
$5,000 Canadian. Yeah, I think it was like 3,500
euros.
Euros. Yeah, not including the flight. This is just the program. So. I had just spent all the money I had on this new studio, which, if you know, looking back at the pictures from when I first opened my studio, it was such a makeshift startup. But that's where it started, and now it looks dope. Now it looks pro. It is pro. So we did a fundraiser.
Yeah, I remember that because your laptop got stolen prior to the fundraiser that Dar put on.
My laptop got stolen.
Because you lived on that house on Eglinton.
Yeah, I think that was a little bit before.
Yeah, and then Dar put on the fundraiser. We surprised you. I think it was a surprise that we did the fundraiser. And we raised the money.
I think you're confusing two things here.
Oh, the birthday party.
There was a birthday where Dar did a fundraiser.
The birthday party. That's what it was.
And got me a new laptop. With that laptop, I got in through Remix and did all that stuff. By the time I was done at Remix, that laptop was near the end of its life. And well, you know how it goes, man. If you're using your laptop all day, every day, you got like 5 years.
Yeah.
You know? So the fundraiser you performed at, it was in the building of where my studio was. Yeah. And we had
Adria,
Kain, Jessie, Rayaz, Allan, Rayman, all do performances, and people came out, and there was like silent auctions, and people were amazing. You know, there was like a little bar. You know, I think it's like a door price.
Yeah.
What do you call it? You got to pay to get in. Pay at the door.
Yeah, no.
Or like donation or something.
Yeah.
You know? And we raised like $4,000 from that event.
Exactly.
And that allowed me to go to this program and go to the Mix with the Masters with Eddie Kramer. And that was such an incredible experience. That changed that flipped my whole view on just making music in general, because it was, I mean, so integral for me as a beat maker, hip hop sampler guy to go and see how someone like Eddie Kramer works. He's making the things that I sample. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And so it was just insight into all of that. Like, oh my God, those drums sound amazing. That's how you do that. And just you know, in terms of recording philosophy, like he makes everything sound good before he ever presses record. Mind you, he's recording to a tape machine, so you can't really, you know, there's a finite amount of time you have on a reel of tape. So you kind of have to work this way. He gets all his sounds dialed in, and I mean dialed in. Like the mix happens while the guy's playing the drum kit. He's playing the drums for like 4 hours while he's tweaking shit. And by the time he's done, you're like, it's done. It's a record. And, you know, that's kind of the mentality of those old guys, where you do everything, you commit to the sound. Everything is done on the way in, so that by the time you press record, which is why, sorry, let me finish that thought. By the time you press record, it sounds finished, it's polished. Which is why, if you ask a lot of those old heads, what's your mixing process? They don't really have one, because the mix is done on the way in. Now, they can tell you what they do to get there on the way in, but when it comes to the mix, it's done. Like, you know, there's not much to do, as there shouldn't be. So that opened my eyes, and I was just, you know, in awe at the professionalism and just how good everything sounded. So, you know, I took away from that, like, okay, we're going to step it up. You know, in terms of using live instruments, in terms of the process, the equipment I was using. I think I went home and maybe spent a bunch of money on some equipment.
Yeah. I remember I was like, damn, this guy won the lottery, bro.
I need these, I need this.
A lot of McQuaid, what's up?
Yeah. But yeah, what an experience. And, you know, made some friends there that I'm still in touch with and still collaborate with to this day.
So I think what I'm basically grasping is, like, it's important to go outside of, you know, Canada, Ontario, you know, see other places and how they do things.
More specifically, outside of your comfort zone, you know, because what would a hip hop guy go to a rock production lesson for? You know, if somebody said, hey, you should go learn how to produce rock music, I'd be like, no.
It's like, are you crazy?
But
I know
because
I'm white,
it was
but
Eddie Kramer, I was like, oh man, I really want to go, because he makes music that I love.
Yeah, exactly.
I really want to just get an insight into his brain, and, you know. So yeah, get out of your comfort zone. Hip hop guy at a rock tutorial or whatever.
And I think that's the most important part, because I think a lot of people get so comfortable in comfort, you know, that there's no room for growth because you're comfortable.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You're scared to do something that will take you to the next level.
Like
Like even
you just end up doing the same thing. And
yeah, and you know, life almost becomes dull. Like for me, like I always want to recreate myself, you know,
Yeah.
whether I'm putting on a electrician hard hat or doing the podcast or being in the booth making music. Like I always want to do something that's above and beyond me.
Yeah. Here you are.
Yeah, you know what I
Here
mean?
we are making episode 1 of the
Exactly.
Above It All podcast.
And you know, and I'm so thankful because you know in Toronto we have you know grants for musicians and for the
Shout out
arts.
to Canada.
Yeah, you know, and I think a lot of people should be tapping into these type of you know grants because it also helps the community. You know,
Yeah.
so I would like to say like you know what would like for the children that are watching this episode like. How would they be able to get in contact with you if they have any questions or, you know, down the road, you know, you start your music program and hopefully it'll be here at the Scarborough Hub.
Well, I'll definitely be posting about it on my Instagram at moosemademusic. Or you can email me at moosemademusic@gmail.com.
Yeah.
Send me some shit. Let me hear something.
Yeah. And what is it like you're looking forward to hearing? Just something brand new to the ears?
Something different. Something creative. Something, you know, that has, you know, I can tell you're pushing the boundaries of something. That's just like, you know, intuitive. Okay. You know.
It's like something no one has done before. It's
Yeah,
like, oh
yeah.
man, I didn't see that coming.
Exactly.
And you know what? For the children watching this, just know that you always have to show up. But not only show up, give it your all. You know, even when you're tired, just keep going, keep grinding. Because I think that's what separates you from the rest of the people. You know, a lot of people out there have talent, but a lot of people don't really push their talent. You know, they don't exercise their talent as much.
Yeah. I mean, that's something you can talk about too, is just the ups and downs of the music industry are what, like, there's a very big contrast. So, you know, it gets tough to pick yourself up time and time again. And if you don't love it, if you don't absolutely love doing it, you're just going to quit and walk away because it is tough. And it gets harder every time to pick yourself back up after a slump, after being broke and, you know, being late on your rent, can't pay your credit cards and blah, blah, blah. But you have to buy this other thing because, you know, you need another microphone or you need another cable or you need, you know, it's just, it's endless. So, you know, mental health is huge, and in staying committed and staying focused. And something I noticed working with the real top guys is they all eat really healthy. Most of them like have some kind of exercise routine or meditation regimen. They all take time for their mental health and physical health. And it's no wonder why, you know, those guys are winning.
Yeah, exactly.
Man, you do yoga and you eat salmon and vegetables, and it's you know,
Yeah, it shows.
You can really see, yeah, it shows, and their brains are just functioning higher.
Yeah.
And the poor guy who spent all his money on a new interface, you know, can only afford KFC Toonie Tuesday. You know?
Hey man, you got to start somewhere, you know.
Exactly. So, but you know, they have to work harder.
Mm-hmm.
How would you balance trying to fit in and fit the mold versus being unique and different? Is kind of how I would translate that. And there's no one answer, and there's no easy answer. But that is something that I was talking about before, where you have to create a bridge. Like, think of something that you want to do that's maybe, at least to your knowledge, hasn't been done before, that you think would be dope. Okay. Now think of how can you do that while, like I said before with the bridge, like having some kind of element that connects it to what's currently happening. So that, you know, just so it's digestible for people.
Mm-hmm.
Like if somebody, let's say aliens came to Earth, would you eat an alien? Probably not.
I would hope not.
No. But if aliens had alien cows, you might be like, I want to try that alien cow. You know what I mean?
Or
like,
alien
I'm gonna
chicken?
try that alien beef burger. Like, there has to be something that has maybe a terrible analogy, but you know what I mean? It's something familiar, like a chord progression or a drum sound that people are familiar with. They say, okay, this is palatable for me because I'm not ready for something that I've never heard before. That's just totally different. Like if your music has no drums and is just like sounds from outer space, like, okay, I know there's no sound in outer space. Okay, I can hear people already. Sound doesn't travel in outer space.
It's like this guy's been to Area 51. How do you feel about people not knowing what's AI and what's written? And if AI is going to take over the whole music
And the
technology?
potential for AI to take over. I mean, as of right now, we have absolutely nothing to worry about because it's very behind. I think music especially. I mean, if I were a graphic designer, I would be worried because that is progressing very fast.
Oh, super fast.
And it's pretty good. But for music... And even graphic designers, like, you're going to have to transition and find something that AI can't do yet. Yeah.
I think it's almost like Motown when they were stealing, I think, Little Richie's music. And then he was like, you know what I mean? Like, he started doing that and,
Started scatting.
Yeah, and then the white artists were like, I can't do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so
they
I was
just
like,
didn't have it.
Yeah, so he got that way on them. He had that one up, like, you know what? You guys can't do it like me. So
yeah. Well, and, it could be naive of me to not be worried right now because it can progress very quickly. We know it's capable of progressing very quickly, but music's just one of those things that kind of comes from the soul. And, I don't know if computers anytime soon. I'm not saying they won't get there, but I don't know if they're going to do that anytime soon. So for now, let's just move on and hope that robots don't start singing soul music.
Oh man, yeah, you're definitely right about that.
It could happen. I mean, there are I think in Korea there are actual AI artists.
Jeez.
There
That
are
is
actual
nuts.
like K-pop
AI
artists that
wow.
don't exist. They're just generated artists, and they're selling records. They're like doing these like holographic performances.
Oh my god,
selling tickets and selling records. Yeah,
this is like Black
it's
Mirror
nuts.
all
So-
over again. But
So maybe we should be worried, but even I think those songs are written by human beings.
I would hope so.
Yeah.
I would honestly hope so.
At least the music of those songs.
Yeah.
You ever asked ChatGPT for lyrics? They are not great. They are not great.
I wanted to touch on two artists that you worked with, and one is Adria Kain.
Hey, shout out Adria.
You know what I mean? Because like I've worked with her. She is super dope, super professional. She has probably one of the greatest voices like I have heard in a long time.
Yeah.
Like
She is
just
an
so
angel.
soulful. Like it is crazy. If you hear this woman's voice, it's as soon as you hear it, you're gravitating towards it. It like pulls every emotion out of your body.
Yeah.
Like, what has been your greatest experience working with Adria?
Well, she's just such a beautiful person. I mean, I love working with Adria. She's obviously incredibly talented, and she's just such a nice person that it's a pleasure working with her every time. I don't know if there's like one experience that says. I mean, we connected in Los Angeles actually when she was out there, and that was really great because it was a sign that she's onto some bigger things, which is great. And obviously the weather was good. I think it was when it was starting to get cold in Toronto, or was still cold in Toronto. I don't remember, but yeah, that memory sticks out. I think it was last year where we connected in LA and we made a song that I think is going to be released at some point. I'm not really sure.
Oh my gosh! Shout out to
so
Adria.
it goes. Yeah, but shout out Adria Kain.
And the last one I want to touch on is Rich Kid.
Rich.
Yeah, OG, triple OG, Rich Kid, the one that basically, yeah, he came out with the bangers, man. You know, straight from Ghana.
For those who don't know, Rich Kid was like the king of Toronto. I don't know if he'd even be comfortable with me saying that, but like he was like everybody knew who Rich Kid was.
He was
in,
that
like,
guy.
2012.
Yeah,
Is that right? 2012? I don't know. About
I
10
think-
years ago.
yeah.
10 or a couple.
Because I think I touched road in 2010, and then I think you were working at the Loft,
That's right, yeah.
like back
Oh,
when.
maybe it was a bit, yeah, maybe it was like 2011.
Yeah, 2011,
2012.
2012.
Something like that, yeah.
So how was that experience?
That was great. It was like I felt like I was working with a celebrity. I'll never forget the first time I met him. I came down into the basement of the Loft, which is the community center that I worked at, and he was there talking to Robert Bailey, who was the program coordinator. And I was like, "Oh, what up?" And he's like, "Hey, I'm Rich Kid." And I was like, "I know who you are." And then I walked away like, "Fuck, why did I say that?" Oh man, but and then I just saw how humble he was and how he took the time of day to work with everybody that came through that studio, and I was like, how is this guy just so nice? And you know, like he's putting it like the We on Some Rich Kid shit mixtapes that would come out. I forget how often. I think once a year. Like people would wait for that, and it was a big moment in the city. Because everyone from the city was on it, you know, Socrates, Maestro.
Shout outs to Socrates, man.
Yeah.
Like, till this day, my favorite track from Rich Kid is the one with Socrates. Like,
Yeah.
let's just grab your gun, shadow waste of time.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
Well, then didn't he just go gold or something?
yeah, he recently got an award
Congrats
for
to
that.
them. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, you know, one thing that stood out with Rich Kid was always just how he took time to work with everybody. And ended up making some real great music with people who you wouldn't think would be capable of that. But Rich Kid pulled it out of them. He's just a great producer.
Yeah, great producer, great person to work with.
Great person, yeah.
Really funny. Like, the guy could tell jokes for days.
Oh yeah.
Like, I don't know. Yeah. Just super dope person to connect with,
Yeah,
man.
absolutely.
Like, in the music business, you got to understand it's a business, you know what I mean? Like, first and foremost, because that's how you're going to be making your living. And, like, could you touch on, like, the business side of the aspects, like, how it works?
Yeah, well, I'm not going to sit here and explain how the music business works, but I will say that it is a business. And for those thinking of getting into music, I almost wonder if it would have been better for me to take the business course in Metalworks rather than the production course, because take McDonald's for example. McDonald's doesn't make the best food.
We all know that.
But they're the best at selling it.
Yeah,
And they do
advertisement.
way more business than anyone. Like, it's not even close. I mean, in terms of
Marketing.
fast food.
Yeah.
So, you know, learn sales, learn some business tactics. If you want to be successful, that might be more beneficial than actually being good at music, as much as it pains me to say that.
No, exactly. Marketing is everything. Like,
Yeah.
you know, you could have the greatest food, but if you don't market it, then how are people going to know?
Yeah, exactly.
So, no, that's super dope. And I'd like to wrap this up. But before we wrap up, I want to say thank you for being my first guest.
Hey,
And-
thanks for having me. Honored.
Yeah, and, you know, shout outs to our videographer, Paul Ohansi. If you guys don't know, this guy is one of the dopest videographers in the city.
Yes, sir.
He's about to blow up big. Like, I remember doing my first music video with him. Like, his creative eye, his lens, and how he captures a story, it's crazy. You know, make sure if you want to work with this guy, I guess we'll put the contacts of everything on the video when it's done. And, yeah, I just want to say thank you to the city of Toronto for giving me this grant to allow me to actually, you know, voice my thoughts and opinions and share with the world, you know, how beautiful, you know, life can be when you could get to the side of beauty. You know, not everything's just sunshine and rainbows. You're going to have to weather the storm to get to the sunshine. So, you know, with that being said, always go for what you want in life, and don't think that, you know, settling down is the way to go. You know, the odds are always against you from once you're even swimming to the egg. The odds are against you. You're 1 in a billionth of a cell. So, you know, for that, just know that, you know, you could get there and always dream big. Dream big and dream bigger and work harder than the rest of the people. So we'd like to end this off with a quote, but I'll let Moose take it. Whatever quote you want to end it off with.
Oh, wow. Throw me on the spot with a quote. Quote, go.
Any quote, man.
Don't eat yellow snow.
All right. Don't eat yellow snow.
Remember, kids. Yeah.
All right. Well, yeah, that's a wrap. And thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you to the Scarborough Hub for hosting me. And that's a wrap.